dealing with incoming and outgoing partners. This particular thing is discussed in chapter 5 and from section 31 to 38 of Indian Partnership Act. What is this incoming and outgoing partners? What do you mean by it? As the word only suggests, incoming means there is some new addition, new partner coming in. Outgoing means a person is going out, he is walking out of the firm. So, this incoming partner has got certain liabilities, and there are certain modes of that partner being introduced into the firm, which are dealt under Indian Partnership Act, and we will be also knowing what it is. When you come to the outgoing partners, as I told you, the person who is going out of the firm is an outgoing partner. How does he walk out of the firm? Is there any methods which is given by Indian Partnership Act? Yes, there are 4 methods which are given. And what are those? The first one says by retirement, by way of retirement. Second is by expulsion, by insolvency, by death. Retirement is he can voluntarily say that he does not want to be a partner, or he can walk out of the partnership firm. Expulsion means the partners make a person who is also a partner to compulsorily go out. They don't want him to continue as a partner. By insolvency and death, the person is an outgoing partner. He becomes an outgoing partner. He no more remains as a partner. This is what we are going to study in this topics. Well, by retirement, we have already known few of the things about retirement, right? We have discussed in certain case laws also. How by retirement? What are his liabilities? Does it become liable for the acts of the firm even after the retirement? All those things we have already known, not in detail, but few things. Well, in this you will be learning in detail. That's all. A very simple chapter and a very easy chapter also. This was your synopsis. This was a basic introduction to this particular topic under partnership. Now we will go and study one by one in detail. The first one is incoming partners. Section 31 of Indian Partnership Act gives the definition of introduction of partners. You have 2 subsections in that. The first subsection says, subject to the contract between the partners and the provisions of section 30. Provisions of section 30, no person shall be introduced into the firm as a partner without the consent of all the partners. So, without the consent of all the partners, no person can be introduced, but subject to a contract and also to the provisions of section 30. Remember this phrase properly. We'll be discussing that in detail. First, let us know what does the subsection 2 says now. Subsection 2 says, subject to the provisions of section 30, a person who is introduced as a partner to the firm does not thereby become liable for the acts of the firm done before he becomes a partner. So, basically your subsection 1 deals with the modes of introduction. It tells you how a person can be introduced. And your subsection 2 talks about his liability. Very, very beautifully explained. Your subsection 1 gives the modes, subsection 2 tells you the liability. From there only you can know the entire thing about incoming partners. Now we will go and deal with the subsection 1. The subsection 1, as I told you, it gives modes of introduction of a partner. So what are the modes? The first one, we'll break that subsection 1 and we'll understand. It says that with the consent of all the existing partners. There should be a consent of all the existing partners. Right? The second one says, in accordance with the contract between the partners. What did I say initially? Subject to the contract between partners and the provisions of section 30. So, if there is any contract that Yes, the partner can be admitted without their, without all the partners. If there are nearly 10 partners, only 5 partners authorized, then yes, he can become a partner. Then fine, if there is an agreement like that. Otherwise, no. Otherwise, the consent of all the partners is must. And the last one is in accordance with the provisions of the section 30. So section 30 is your minus thing. That provisions are also should be kept in mind, and then a new partner has to be taken. Clear with this? So the first point what I told you in the notes was with the consent of all the existing partners. That means yes, all the partners have to give their consent for a new partner to be introduced into the firm. The second one is in accordance with the contract between the partners. What is this in accordance with the contract between the partners? The rule stated in this is subject to the contract between partners. That is what we studied, right? If a contract between the partners permits the introduction of new person, even without the consent of all the existing partners, that can possibly be done. It says that without the consent also, if there is a contract, no, not required, the consent of all the partners are required, still you can admit a person as a partner. Then they can take him as a partner. For example, there is a contract which provides that majority of the partners shall be competent to admit a partner, a new partner. So if there are 10 partners, if there are 8 partners, they are major in number. So this majority can admit a partner, or any one of them may nominate a partner or appoint his successor. If they have an agreement saying that yes, they can nominate a partner and may also appoint as a successor, then they can do as a new partner. So there could be many conditions which are laid down in the agreement. So once if they are bound by that agreement, if they all give their consent and sign the agreement, then that agreement becomes valid. They have to bring in the new partner. If they get the new partner as per the agreement, then it is valid and it becomes a partner. Even if some of the partners are unwilling to bring in the new partner, they will be bound by the contract and it will be valid. Clear with this? If I told you the major or partner's consent is valid if there is a contract, but if they say that no, we don't want to appoint this as a partner, this person as a partner, but if there is a contract, they have to admit him as a partner. And also one more important point to be noted here is a person does not become a partner. He does not just become a partner by nominating. That person who has been nominated has to give his consent also. He has to either say expressly or impliedly, he has to agree for the same that yes, he is willing to become a partner. If at all a person is nominated and he does not want to become a partner, then even though there is a contract, no, he won't become a partner. If he says, if he agrees either expressly or impliedly, then he becomes a partner. Then coming to the point regarding the minor, a minor who has been admitted for the benefits of partnership, on attaining majority, he can become a partner. And he gets the same rights, liabilities, and he'll be liable for the firm's acts. And also in the previous topic, we also studied that there is a time limit of 6 months after a minor becoming a major, age of majority. So in that 6 months, if he agrees that yes, I want to be a partner, then he'll be admitted as a partner before the expiry of 6 months only. But if he keeps silence as regarding that whether he wants to become a partner or not, then after the expiry of the 6 months, he will be considered as a partner and he will become liable for all the acts of the firm. Before 6 months, he has to either choose that he wants to be a partner or he doesn't want to be a partner and give a notice to the firm. If at all he wants to avoid liability, before 6 months only he has to say, now I don't want to be a partner and I am giving my this notice that he does not want to continue as a partner on attaining the age of majority. Clear with this? This I have explained you in the last session itself. Now coming to the next point is, aftermost, liability of an incoming partner, which is given under section 31 subsection 2. What is it? This has to be read with section 25 of Indian Partnership Act. Section 25 says that every partner, every partner is liable for the acts of the firm done while he is a partner. Whatever act is done by a partner in the continuance of a firm, even other partners are liable as per it. Mutual agency. This section 31 subsection 2, it confirms this rule. It says yes, this rule is right and states that an incoming partner does not thereby become liable for any acts done before he becoming a partner. It says that before he becomes a partner, whatever the acts were done by a firm, he cannot be made liable. And thereby, from this you can get to know that his liability for the acts of the firm starts from the day when he is appointed as a partner, when he comes in as a partner. That is basically when he joins the firm. However, a partner can also become liable for the previous debts. How? Previous acts. How does he become liable? By an agreement. If he gives an agreement stating that, yes, I will also become liable for all the acts that is liable to other partners, my co-partners also, then that new partner will also be liable for the acts done before him joining the firm. The creditors can make him also liable. Clear with this? So he gives an agreement. For this, we have in case law Central Bank of India versus Theresma Compressed Woods Manufacturing. What happens in this case? Initially, there were 3 partners in the firm. And the 4th one was admitted. He came in. After he coming in, they made an agreement. The agreement stated as like this. We are jointly and severally responsible to the bank for the liabilities of the firm with the bank. The bank may recover its claim and dues from all or any of the partners of the firm and the assets of the deceased partner. So this is what it said. Now this 4th partner who had was newly appointed as a partner also undertook this agreement and therefore he became liable. So it was held in this case that yes, he was also liable because he has agreed to be liable to whatever the loans they have taken from the bank. So once he gives in writing or in his it can be any mode. So if he says that yes, I become liable, then he becomes liable to the third parties also. One more thing, when this new partner is admitted, how do you get to know his liability? One is agreement. That is, he is acknowledging the pre-existing liabilities. He says, okay, fine, I will be paying for this. And also, if he is trying to clear off the debts, even that also you can consider that, yes, he is trying to clear the debts and is also acknowledging for the debts. And thereby, he has agreed to clear off the loan or the liabilities of the firm. Now, we'll go to the next topic, that is outgoing partners. Who are these outgoing partners? By the term itself, you can get to know that they're going out of the firm. That is, they are no more the partners. They cease to be partners. Even the rights and liabilities of those partners also does not exist. So once they go out of the firm, they are no more the partners, and same thing, their rights and liabilities are also not there. So which section deals with this, ma'am? Must be your question. The question for your answer, the answer for your question is section 32 to 38. So section 32 to 38 of Indian Partnership Act gives you the ways in which the partners ceases to be a partner of the firm. Now what are those ways? The first way is retirement. The second one is expulsion. The third one is insolvency, and the fourth one is death. I hope you would have understood insolvency and death. So okay, anyways, we will be again dealing with it. Now let's go one by one and let's see how it is. First one is retirement. Retirement, by retirement, that is outgoing partner. A partner becomes an outgoing partner by the way of retirement. That is given under section 32 of Indian Partnership Act. So what is this retirement? It basically means voluntary withdrawal. So under this situation, when a partner is withdrawing, he does not want to be a partner, the firm is not dissolved. It continues with the remaining partners. Clear with this? So what do you mean by remaining when retirement means? It means that it is voluntary withdrawal and the firm does not discontinue. Instead, it continues with the remaining partners. If there is the minimum requirement is fulfilled, that is at least minimum 2 has to be there, right? In order to be called as a partnership, if those 2 persons are there, then it continues to be a firm. Okay, clear. So retirement means voluntary withdrawal. Now, the question may come, how can a partner retire? For that, you get the answer in section 32 subsection 1. It says that consent, the consent of all the remaining partners. If suppose one of the partner wants to retire, he has to get the consent of all the remaining partners. Now, for example, there are 4 partners in the firm, A, B, C and D. Now, A wants to retire. The first point under section 32 subsection 1 says that he has to get the consent of B, C and D if A wants to retire. Clear? The next one is express agreement. What is express agreement? We have been discussing what is express agreement. Express agreement means if there is any agreement between the partners that yes, this shall be the mode, or where you can retire by this way. If it prescribes anything, if the agreement which is made by the partner says regarding retirement, by that way they can retire. Or giving notice. So a partner, if he wants to retire, he can give a notice. This usually happens where under partnership at will. Under which section did we study partnership at will? It is under section 7. Do remember, we will be repeating again and again all these things. So as soon as by giving notice means, the thing it should come to your mind is where notice we are giving. It is under partnership at will, which is dealt under section 7 of Indian Partnership Act. Fine. Now you got to know how it is, how it works, and what are the how are the ways in which they can retire. And under that retirement, you got to know that section 32 subsection 1 gives you how a partner can retire. See, basically retirement means when a partner is coming, he is going to get certain property, even he is going to invest something. So when he retires, don't you think that there is seriously a dislocation of the firm? There is some dislocation in the firm. There are some changes in the firm. So that is why that makes necessary that the consent of all the partners are necessary. Remember this. Why do you need consent of all the partners? Means there is some change in the business. When he is retiring, when he is going out, he will take his profit. Right? So there is some change. That is why this consent is made necessary. Why do you need express agreement? Means, see, under agreement, there may be certain methods which the partners would have agreed upon. So, in case if it says that, right, okay, the partner can retire if the majority of the partners give their consent. Then only he can retire. Why do they require majority consent? If there is something important transaction going on in the business and it is worth crores. then suddenly when a partner has to retire, even he has to get his shares. He'll be taking his property. So don't you think that would affect the firm? That is why express agreement is necessary. In agreement, if it says that there should be a majority consent of the partners, then only you can retire. So they'll be putting certain conditions how a partner can retire, or else even by giving 1 year's notice or 6 months notice or 1 month notice, they may prescribe something so that it won't harm the firm's business in such a way. That is why this particular express agreement becomes necessary at that point of time. Now, as I told you, partnership at will, section 7 gives you partnership at will, and we have already studied section 24. What it says: notice to a partner who habitually acts in the business of the firm operates notice to other partners also. What does your section 24 says? Give a notice to a partner who is habitually doing the business, that is, who is managing the entire business. That is enough. It serves as a notice to other partners also. And also, as I told you, in this retirement, in order to a firm to continue, there should be at least how many partners? Yes, at least 2 partners are must. In case if there are 2 partners, we'll take an example. A and B are partners. Now A retires. Can B alone be a partner? Can run the firm? No, there must be 2 partners. So now, if A is retiring, B can have another new partner. If C is coming in, then okay, that is a partnership firm. Even A goes, it does not affect it. But only if B is there and no one else is coming in, then that is not a partnership firm. Yeah. Now, after knowing the details about the retirement, now let's see the liabilities. What liabilities? So, the liabilities for the acts of a retiring partner before the retirement. So, whatever acts he has done, that is before retirement, how is he liable? We are going to study it in 2 ways, basically: liabilities and liabilities after retirement. That is, a retired partner after his retirement, does he become liable to the third parties for the acts of the firm? Is the thing we are going to study. Remember, when we are going to study liabilities, it is from 2 points, that is before retirement and after retirement. Fine. Now, before retirement is dealt under section 32 subsection 2. So where do you find it? Section 2 subsection, so section 32 subsection 2. I'm sorry. And how the retirement takes place is under section 32 subsection 1. Now, section 32 subsection 2 says that you can retire, a partner can retire, but he has to give a notice to the third parties as well as to the other partners, that is the continuing partners. So, notice to third party is also important. That is what is said in this particular section. So, in case if you give notice to third parties, they'll get to know that this particular person, he is no more a partner, he is retiring from the firm, and henceforth, whatever the acts done by the firm, he won't be liable. Clear with this? And one more point, other point also, you can just think from other point also. In case if the retiring partner is starting a similar business, same business whatever he was doing in the firm, and in case if he is misrepresenting the firm, when a notice is given that he is no more a partner, don't you think that the third party is on a safer side? So it is in the interest of both firm as well as the retired partner. Notice is always a best way. So notice to the third party has to be given. He has to say that I am no more the partner of that firm and the firm has been reconstituted. Why do you say reconstituted? See, even if one person moves out of the firm, there are 4 partners who have come together. They've put in all their money, property and all, and if one person is leaving, there is, as I told you, there is some dislocation in the firm, there is some change in the firm. Clear with this? So, when one of the partner is going, he is no more a partner. These 3 partners, it is going to be a new partnership firm. It is not going to be the old one when the 4 partners were there. It is always a new partnership firm when one is going, and if at all if another one is coming also, then also it is going to be a new firm. It is called reconstituted firm. Clear with this? So I'll be using this word reconstituted firm. Reconstituted firm means it is not, it should come to your mind that one person is going. If the person is going, then also the remaining, whatever the continuing partners are there, they are going to form a reconstituted firm, or else if another person is also coming, then also it is a reconstituted firm. Reconstituted means new. That's all. So fine, what we just discussed, that notice to a third party is must. So when what notice he gives to the third party, saying that I am no more a partner and I am retiring, and I am no more liable for the acts of the firm. This particular method is called as novation. What is this novation? Under this, novation means substitution with the creditor's consent of a new debtor for an old debts. Substitution with the creditor's consent. Creditor is giving his consent for substituting a new debtor. See, they have taken the firm would have taken something, and it has, okay, we'll take it in a more simple way. Simple example, firm has taken certain loan from X. Now the partners in the firm, there are 4 partners in the firm as usual, A, B, C and D. They have taken loan from X. Now A is retiring. He is giving a notice saying that, see, I am no more liable for your debts because I am retiring. Then who is liable? If A is retiring, B, C and D are liable to D. He is substituting them. See, I won't be liable. Now whatever the share I had to give you, no, I won't be liable. It is the other partners who become liable. So that is called as novation. It is with the creditor's consent. Remember, substitution with the creditor's consent of a new debtor for an old one. It can be otherwise also. Some new member is coming to become a partner, and another one person is going out of the firm. So he comes in the place of a retiring partner. New partner is coming in place of a retiring partner. So even he can be made liable for the firm's debt. Clear? So that is called as novation. Basically, novation means one person coming on behalf of another person. It is stepping into the shoes of other persons. He is coming in this place on behalf of him. So that is called novation. We have a beautiful case law which explains you the novation concept. That is KG George versus State Bank of Travancore. In this case, this is the best example of this novation concept. So in this case, there was a partnership firm and one person is retiring. And this bank had provided certain OD facility as well as medium term loan to the firm. And now one partner is retiring. This partner gives a notice to the bank saying that I am retiring from this particular firm and I won't be liable for any of the acts of the firm. He has clearly given a notice. After the bank receiving the notice, it makes an agreement. It makes subsequent agreements and also certain revival letters about revival letters about the loan, regarding the loan. It gets the signature. They make an agreement, and the bank gets the signature from the firms remaining reconstituted firm. That is, the partners who are there continuing there. They make an agreement with the bank and they get the signatures, certain signatures, and yes, they make an agreement for the loan. From this act, it is very clear that the bank had a knowledge that the person has retired and is no more liable. How did he get to know? By giving notice. So there was some default, and the bank makes the retiring partner also liable. And this case went to the court. There it was decided that the retiring partner had already given a notice. And also bank has received it and has also made subsequent agreements regarding the loan. Plus some revival letters also, it has got signed by the remaining partners. So this shows that the retiring partner is discharged from his liability and the partners of the reconstituted firm is alone liable for the debts, whatever it has taken from the bank. So clear with this? Fine. So this is the best example of this particular concept called novation. Novation means substitution. Substitution with the creditor's consent. So to remember, it is always necessary that the creditors must agree. Clear? Very important, the creditors must agree for this. Fine. Next one. Now, whatever we dealt was before. That is, liabilities before retirement. So, whatever the acts done by a retiring partner before he retires, how does he become liable? And how can he escape from this liability? Is what we dealt here. That is, by giving notice. That's all. Now, if at all, how can a partner be made liable after him retiring from the firm? Can he be made liable? Let's see. That's given in the section 32, subsection 3 and also subsection 4. So it says that basically the third parties, how do they file a case against the person who has retired is they assume that yes, he must be still a partner. They don't know, they have not got any notice as such. So they think that yes, this person must be still a partner. On what? On basis of mutual agency. Mutual agency is one of the essentials under partnership, right? So they think that, oh, he's still a partner in the firm and he's a under mutual agency. So anyways, I can file a case against him for any default whatever is done by the firm, and they file a case. They don't know anything about his retirement. That is why it says that the notice becomes very important. Section 32 subsection 3 says that if there is, it speaks about the absence of public notice. What happens? What happens? Do remember, it always tells you about absence. Absence of public notice. So, if there is no public notice, so the outgoing partner and the continuing partner liable for the acts of the firm for the third parties. So even the outgoing partner becomes liable for the acts of the firm, and even the and even the continuing partners also become liable for the if the outgoing partner misrepresents, saying that I'm still in the firm, and he does something, then they become liable. Even the outgoing partner and the continuing partner, they both each other become liable. For whom? Third parties. So that is why public notice is very important. Remember, section 32 subsection 3 speaks about absence of public notice. Section 32 subsection 4 says that notice may be given by whom? It can be given by retired persons or any partners of the reconstituted firm. Why should you give notice? Basically, it is in the interest of both the parties, that is retired as well as other partners in the continuing firm, so that they don't become liable for each other. They are no more. However, they cease to be partners, so there is no relationship of partnership. So for their acts, they should not become liable for each other. That is why a notice becomes very important. Now I am speaking about public notice. What is this public notice? Public notice is dealt under section 72. It says that it has to be given in an official gazette, at least in one of the vernacular language, and where it should be given in the place where the principal business of the firm is carried on, where the main branch, the main head office of the firm is there. There it should be given that yes, that this particular person has been retired. This even comes in case of expulsion also. And if the partnership is registered, in case a partnership is registered, if the register of the firms has to be given a notice of it that yes, this person is being retired. So that is called public notice. That is given under section 72 of the Act. Remember very much is you have to remember this thing is notice is given in the interest of both the parties. Now Retirement of a dormant partner. If a dormant partner is retired, should a notice to be given? Dormant partner is not actively participating in any activities of the firm. So, as per the act, it says that since he is not known to the third parties don't even know that this person is the partner of a firm. So then the notice is not required. It is mainly the notice is given for the interest of third parties, to protecting the interest of third parties. Fine. This was about retirement, which is given under section 32. So how can he retire? What are his liabilities before and after retirement? Is the main thing what we are going to study under retirement. The next part is expulsion. Expulsion is given under section 33. What is expulsion? Expulsion means made to quit. The other partners say that you have to quit from this particular firm. So he is made to quit. Here it is voluntary withdrawal. Here it is made to quit. They make him to leave the firm. For that, there are two conditions which have to be fulfilled, which is given under section 33. What are those conditions? It says that power to expel has to be conferred by the contract between the partners. The power to expel has to be given by the contract. And when you are exercising this power, it should be exercised in good faith. It is not for the... See, if any one of the partner is not very happy with the other partner, he cannot exercise the power to expel, and he cannot make him go out of the firm just because he is not happy with the other partner. That cannot be done. It should be exercised in the good faith. Clear? Well, we'll be seeing further how exactly the expulsion takes place with certain case laws also. Now, we'll go to the first case law here under this expulsion, a very interesting case law. In this case law, it said that, the agreement said that the power to expel was given when any of the partner has made any scandalous conduct which is detrimental to the partnership business. He has made certain thing which causes direct effect to the business of the firm, or he is guilty of some breach of duties relating to the partnership business. So these two were the conditions which were given, and if any partner does any of this, then he can be expelled from the firm. One of the partner, then he was convicted for traveling without ticket. He did not buy the ticket and he was caught, and thereby it seemed to be very detrimental to the partnership business, and he was given a notice of expulsion by the remaining partners. Now he approached the court. He said that, how can you remove me? You cannot do this. Then the court said that since it is going to be detrimental to the business of the firm, everyone knows that this particular person is associated with this firm. So don't you think it affects the business? So the court said that yes, this particular letter of notice of expulsion which is given is justifiable here, and it is also valid because under the agreement only it said that it gave in two conditions, that if there is any scandalous conduct done by a partner which is detrimental to the business of the firm, or if he has done any breach that is relating to a partnership business, then he will be expelled from the firm, and he has done it, and therefore it was justified. The second case, Wistlet versus Daniel, this case is quite interesting, and it clearly gives you how these two conditions were not fulfilled. In this case, there was an agreement made by the partners that 2/3 or more of the partners were empowered to expel a partner from a partnership firm, and they can expel a partner without giving any notice. Then one of the partner was expelled. He did not know why. Then later on it was known that the real reason for him expelling is was not to protect the business of the firm, but the partner, that particular partner who was expelled, he had opposed the appointment of co-partner's son as co-manager of with his father. He had basically opposed the appointment of co-partner's son in this particular business. So that co-partner along with other partners had expelled him from the firm. Now this case went to the court and the court decided that this is not valid. It is void. This particular expulsion is void. Why? Because the power is given by the contract and you have not exercised it in good faith. If it is exercised in good faith, then it is fine. In this previous case, Chemical versus Evans, what did we study? That yes, it was done in good faith. Because he has done some act which is detrimental to the business of the firm, he was given the notice of expulsion. But in this case, second case, it was not in good faith, right? So that is why in this case it was held valid and here it was held void. Now, let's speak about the liability. What is the liability? Even here also it is same as whatever we studied under retirements. It is same as retired partner. So, for before expulsion, all the procedures of section 32 subsection 2 has to be followed. That is, notice to the third party has to be given. And later on, after expulsion, that is the same thing. There should be a public notice. Here notice to the third party alone. Here it is a public notice. Do remember, after the retirement, it should be less public notice. Yeah. So these are the things under retirement and expulsion. I hope you are clear with this. Next, insolvency. Insolvency is dealt under section 34. Insolvency says that it means he is adjudicated as insolvent. He has been adjudicated as insolvent. Then when he's been adjudicated that this particular partner is an insolvent, then he ceases to be a partner from the date of order. So when the order is given, yes, this person is an insolvent, from that date of order, he ceases to be a partner. He is no more a partner. So now the question may arise, what happens to the estate of the partner, or in precise, what happens to the property or estate of insolvent partner? So it says that when he himself is not liable for the acts of the firm, do you think even his estate can be made liable? No. So when the order comes that he is an insolvent, his estate is no more liable for the acts of the firm, and even the firm is not liable for the acts of the insolvent after he being adjudicated as insolvent. And in this case, no public notice is required, because the order itself, it becomes a notice that this person is no more a partner. So they say that no public notice is required. The next last part is death. Our last way is death. That is given under section 35. Usually the partnership firm is dissolved. We do hear this. It is dissolved on the death of a partner, right? This is what we were also studying. So partnership firm gets dissolved on the death of a partner, but if there is any agreement to the contrary, it says that no, even in case of death of a person or a partner, let's be precise, or a partner, the firm does not ceases or it does not get dissolved. It continues with the remaining partner. If such agreement is made, then the partnership firm continues with the remaining partners even after the death of a partner. Now, coming to the estate of the deceased partner, it is not liable for the Firms Act. He is no way liable. Whatever the estate of the deceased partner is there, it won't be liable for the acts of the firm, because he himself is no more. Then how can you make his estate liable? No, you can't. We saw what are the liabilities of outgoing partner. Now let's see what are the rights. The rights are given under Indian Partnership Act itself. The first right, it says right of carrying on a competing business. Here it is. It is, they can also do a same business. Once a partner ceases to be a partner, he can carry on the same business or a competing business. The second one is right to share subsequent profits until the amount due to him has been paid. So when can he demand the share in profits? Until whatever rightfully he has to get is given to him, till then he can claim the share in the profits. Then let's go one by one and see what it is. The first one is right to carry on the competing business. It is given under section 36 subsection 1. It says that, this particular section says that when a partner ceases to be a partner, how? By retirement, by expulsion or by insolvency, he has got this right to carry on the competing business. So 3 persons who ceases to be a partner, that is by way of retirement, expulsion or insolvency, they have got the right to carry on this business whatever the firm was carrying on. And also they can advertise their business. When a partner, when he ceases to be a partner and he is forming a new company or any starting a new business, then he can advertise it. I'll give an example of this. Let's try to understand by an example. There are 4 partners in the firm, A, B, C and D. And their firm's name is Rama Firm. They have come together and the firm name is Rama Firm. Partner B, he retires and he comes out of the firm and he starts the same business which the Rama Firm was doing. This Rama Firm were doing the business of some stationery products. Now the P has come out of the firm, he has retired and he has come out of the firm, and now even he starts the same same type of business, that is relating to stationery products. So now as per this particular section, he has got a right to do it, and he has also got a right to advertise his business. But there are certain conditions which are put to the person starting a similar business or a competing business, that is in this example partner B, who is no more a partner, he has got certain restrictions. What are those restrictions? Not to use firm's name, that is he cannot use firm's name. That is, now when the partner B who has come out of the firm, he is starting a business that is the same competing business, that is stationery products only, and now he cannot use the firm's name. What was the firm's name? Rama's Firm. He cannot use the same name and start the business. So that is the first condition, so that the old customers get confused, the third parties who are dealing with the firm get confused, right? So he cannot use the firm's name. This is the first condition. Second condition, not to misrepresent. So the person B who has come out of the firm, he cannot go to others and say that I am still carrying on the business for the firm. Partnership is based on mutual agency. He cannot go and represent the firm saying that Rama Firm that I am still a partner and I am doing the business for this, and then whatever the business is given by the third party, he cannot divert to his firm. That is a misrepresentation, right? So he cannot misrepresent. Second condition. Third condition, cannot approach old customers. Now, when the partners were dealing with the stationery products under the name of Rama Firm, they would have certain customers, right? So now when the partner B has come out of the firm, now he cannot go approach the old customers and say that, and he cannot divert those customers to his business. He cannot ask them to leave that particular firm and then make business with him. He cannot do this. So these are the 3 conditions which a partner, an outgoing partner, is subjected to under this right. When he has got this right, but still there are certain restrictions on him. And also, section 36, subsection 2. It provides an agreement between the outgoing partner and the continuing partners. What is that agreement? It says that agreement can be whereby the outgoing partner, that is a partner B, he can be restricted also to carry on similar business. When this partner is coming out of the firm, they can get an agreement done. That is by continuing partners that no, you cannot carry on the similar business. And there is certain restriction for this, because anything restraint to trade, we have studied in Contract Act. What is it? Anything restraint to trade is void, right? So when the continuing partners are restricting the business activities of the partner who has come out, it is also a restraint of the trade and it is void. So for this, it is they have given in certain conditions how you can restrict the trade. So what are those conditions? Are that when they make an agreement that you cannot continue a similar business, they can mention the specified period. They can say, you please don't carry on my business for a period of 5 years or for a period of 1 year, or else even the specified local limits. If it, for example, if the business is in Basaveshwanagar, they can say that you please don't carry on the business in this particular area. You can carry elsewhere. You can carry this business in Maleshwaram. So that local limit, specified local limit or restriction can also be put. And also always remember, whatever the restrictions they are putting on the outgoing partner, it should always be reasonable. It should be justifiable and reasonable. Clear? It should not be unreasonable. They cannot say as per their wishes. It should always be reasonable. So I hope you are clear with carrying on competing business. Remember two things. Section 36 subsection 1 says that 3 persons who are, that is outgoing partners are, who are those? The by retirement, by expulsion or by insolvency, they can carry on the competing business and they have been given certain conditions. And also there is an agreement which is made under section 36 subsection 2, that is restraint to trade, but there are certain conditions, reasonable conditions, which has to be put by the continuing partners to the outgoing partners. The next one is share of subsequent profits, which is due to him, which has to be paid to the partners. That is in proper terms to the outgoing partners. So when a partner ceases to be a partner by retirement, by expulsion, by insolvency, here also by death, when these by this ways, when a partner ceases to be a partner, the share of the profits in the property can be immediately paid by the firm. If any of the partner is being retired, or if he is expelled, or if he is declared insolvent, or if there is a death of any partner, then whatever the amount the share has to be paid should be paid immediately to the outgoing partners or the representatives. Representative, and speaking of the deceased person, has to be paid. Clear? And they can continue the business. Or else section 37 says that if at all it is not paid, what to do? When the outgoing partners or the representatives of deceased partner is not paid share in profits, what to do is the question. For this, section 37 gives you the answer. It says that claim the claim the profits that is made in the partnership firm, and that profits which is your share, your whatever the share of profits is to be paid for the outgoing partners, you can claim it. The second one says that a claim can be made an interest at 6% per annum on the amount of his share on the property of the firm. Whatever the property of the firm is there, you can even claim 6% interest per annum. So this is given under section 37. How can you make certain claims in the profit of the partnership firm? That is to be the share of a partner, share of the outgoing partner. Clear with this? In the last part in this particular outgoing partner chapter is So that is revocation of continuing guarantee. That is given under section 38. What we have already studied continuing guarantee. Continuing guarantee means it is only relevant to the future transaction. If somebody becomes a surety here. So all this I hope you all remember what is continuing guarantee. So when a partner ceases to be a partner, even the continuing guarantee is revoked for the future transaction. If any of the partner is a surety for any other person under the firm's name, when he becomes an outgoing, when he ceases to be a partner, he is no more liable for any continuing guarantee. It stands revoked. Clear with